Hey, you're watching part 9 of The Crown Prince that sells medicine. Before we start, make sure to subscribe and like the video. Same author as the world's greatest estate developer. Different era, same genius writing. Let's jump into part 9. Sunlight bathed the palace as Raphael stood on the dais, looking down at the roaring crowd. I want to buy it. I want to buy it. I must have it. In the distance, two men whispered to each other. Even if it's expensive, I still want to buy it. Should I borrow money? Watching the scene, Raphael rubbed his chin with a satisfied smirk. Good reaction. Gotta recoup the costs of putting on this event. He couldn't miss this opportunity to promote the clinic. Putting his thought into action, he cleared his throat and addressed the crowd. People of Cremaux. He waited for the clamor to die down before continuing. As you all know, I am Lachiel Magentano, Crown Prince of the Empire, and I am also the director of the Royal Clinic, which is currently thriving in the capital. The crowd exchanged surprised glances. Raphael paused, turning to look at the three people behind him, each wearing an expression of utter bewilderment. He then turned back to the crowd. On this special occasion, I would like to tell you a little more about my clinic. Damien, Alice, and Yelt's Cremaux stood impassively, each holding a sign advertising the clinic. Magentano Royal Clinic. We have everything you need, just come on down. Specializing in acupuncture, acupressure, chiropractic, and obesity treatment. Expert treatment for all kinds of illnesses, completely free of charge. The Royal Clinic specializes in internal and external medicine, treating all kinds of diseases and offering rehabilitation services, open 7 days a week. Free consultations and treatment. Even Urus wasn't exempt. His large hand held a sign high, bellowing enthusiastically. Bone and joint specialists. Come to the Royal Clinic. Open 24/7, treating all kinds of ailments. Raphael continued his fervent promotion. The Royal Clinic, though recently established, offers medical services with a completely new approach. He then cheerfully addressed the crowd. Has anyone here ever heard of the Royal Clinic? A silence descended, thick enough to hear a pin drop. Suddenly, an older man and a young man raised their hands. I've heard of it. Me too, Raphael said triumphantly. So, quite a few people know about it after all. That's a relief. Under the disdainful gazes of Damien and Alice, he muttered, since I've gone to all this trouble, I have to prove its worth, right? Raphael then addressed the crowd again, his tone jovial. I can't just advertise empty promises, can I? He said, thinking to himself, time to cast the bait. With a flourish, he declared, what kind of place is Cremaux? It's the most bustling and beautiful commercial center in the North Sea. The heart of the empire, isn't it? His words moved the onlookers, some to the point of tears. Only when everyone is healthy can Cremaux prosper, he declared, his voice resonating with emotion. The crowd was captivated. And when Cremaux prospers, the empire grows strong. Raphael bowed, feigning sincerity. I desire the well-being of all. If anyone gathered here feels any discomfort, even the slightest, he paused, letting his words sink in. Please step forward. Even minor ailments are of concern. The director of the Royal Clinic, Yelt's, he announced, will personally examine you. Sensing the crowd's hesitation, Raphael clenched his fist. Time for the final move. He addressed the crowd again. The first 100 people to step forward will receive a free medical examination voucher. Alice immediately protested. Isn't it always free? Damien simply sighed. Raphael, clutching a crystal orb in one hand, raised the other to the sky and shouted excitedly, free! First come, first served. Begin. The moment the word free left his lips, the crowd surged forward, vying for a spot. Raphael smiled smugly. Oh, my valued customers. Imagining the scene of people scrambling, his smile widened. Oh no, my lifespan extending clientele. The crowd formed an orderly line, awaiting their turn. An elderly woman stood before Raphael. Here you are, he said, handing her a slip of paper. Bring this voucher to the Royal Clinic. I will prescribe you the finest constitution-enhancing medicine. He continued, of course, travel and accommodation expenses from here to the capital are fully covered. Free of charge, naturally. The elderly woman nodded repeatedly, expressing her gratitude. Thank you, Your Highness. After she left, Raphael clapped his hands excitedly, his voice brimming with glee. I've distributed 100 free vouchers. Even if only 10% of them come to the clinic, that's more than enough. In stark contrast to Raphael's enthusiasm, Alice's face was grim. At least 10 patients, free medical examinations, plus travel expenses to the capital covered. Will we be able to manage? Lachiel, oblivious to her concern, turned to Alice with a carefree smile. Well, good, isn't it? Anise could only weep inwardly. Head of the royal guard, we might have to sell all our possessions again. Then she heard Lachiel, the crown prince, continuing to fantasize about the bright future of the royal clinic. Now, there's no one in Cremaux who doesn't know about our clinic. He even declared with unwavering confidence. This is a fourfold return on our promotional strategy. Damien, standing guard nearby, watched him with growing anxiety. It's been 9 hours already. Are you all right? A moment later, Lachiel stretched, groaning, "Oh man." Suddenly, he clutched his arm in pain. Have I pushed myself too hard? A system notification appeared. Your internal organs request that you adhere to labor laws. The old turtle within him trembled in protest. Working 9 hours straight without a break. Is this guy insane? His liver also roared in indignation. When do we get a break? Raphael's steps grew heavy. He felt like he could barely stand. No, everyone's watching. I have to look cool. His vision blurred. The panicked faces of those around him swam into view. I can't show this weakness. But in the end, he couldn't hold on any longer and collapsed. Damien and Yelt's Cremaux rushed to his side. Your Highness! Your Highness! Faced with their concerned inquiries. Are you all right, Your Highness? Lachiel trembled, forcing a reassuring smile. But inwardly he despaired. This weak body. Suddenly, a system notification appeared before him. You have diligently treated numerous patients in less than a day, resulting in exhaustion. Your image has reached the people of Cremaux. The sight of their crown prince collapsing from exhaustion after tirelessly caring for them has deeply moved them. The people of Cremaux have felt your sincerity. They are incredibly grateful. Their admiration, gratitude, and praise have generated a new power for your medical abilities. The Good Doctor Points system, or GDP, Red Doctor Boy, has been activated. Lachiel could still hear the worried voices around him. Your Highness, are you all right? But he could only focus on a new skill. GDP is a type of reputation point. You will receive points for healing and saving people, building your reputation in society, making history-worthy achievements, or moving the hearts of many. You have received 101 GDP. Current GDP, 101. Lachiel thought to himself, good doctor points. Sounds cool. But what were they for? The system immediately responded. You can use GDP to purchase free lie tickets. Free lie tickets are coupons that can be purchased for 100 GDP. When used, the designated target will believe completely and eternally any single lie you tell them. Lachiel stared blankly, then burst out laughing. What the heck? Then, Lachiel felt a surge of energy coursing through him. Is this system a game hack? He grasped the hand extended towards him. Damien slowly helped him to his feet. The system's prompts continued to appear before his eyes. When using a ticket, you must designate a target. Each ticket can only be used on one target at a time. Each ticket can only be used for one lie. Note, when used, targets who are divine beings or beings close to divinity may recognize the ticket's effect. Seeing Lachiel still dazed, Damien quickly asked with concern, Your Highness, are you all right? Lachiel immediately recovered, not forgetting to tease Damien. If I weren't, would you carry me? Damien replied dryly. As long as you pay me. The sky was a clear blue, the sun warm. Leaves drifted lazily in the air as Damien escorted Lachiel towards Mayor Yelt's. Lachiel's voice mingled with the breeze. It really is you. By now, Lachiel, supported by Damien, was approaching the mayor. The mayor, eyes brimming with tears and hands trembling, asked Lachiel, Are you certain you wish to depart now, Your Highness? Although Lachiel seemed his usual cheerful self, the mayor remained worried. Your body hasn't fully recovered. Lachiel smiled in response. It was just a cramp. That's why I fell. Still, Your Highness, you should at least rest for a night before departing. Lachiel brushed off the concern. I'm Fina. I can sleep in the carriage. The mayor persisted. Surely it won't be as comfortable as a bed? Despite Damien's exasperated sigh, Lachiel cheerfully replied, Sleeping in the carriage is quite comfortable. Lachiel placed a hand on the mayor's shoulder and said graciously, In any case, I've received your utmost hospitality during my stay here. The medal ceremony today was also a great success. The mayor responded emotionally. That is all thanks to your efforts, Your Highness. Before climbing into the carriage, Raphael turned back and added, "Please visit the royal clinic sometime, along with Roberto." The mayor, startled, stammered, "Huh?" Raphael's mind flashed to the image of a haggard, aging Roberto, tears and snot streaming down his face. The mayor broke out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, Raphael simply continued, "Nothing. See you later." Raphael stepped into the carriage, turning back to wave goodbye. The carriage began to roll away from the city, towards the capital, Magentano. People looked on in alarm at the unfolding scene. What in the world is that? That's a monstrous beast. Following the carriage, the sound of hurried footsteps suddenly approached. Raphael caught sight of Urus. The newcomer also seemed startled. Urus cast a sharp glance, sniffing disdainfully at the approaching figure. The man quickly shook his head, regaining his composure. He then saluted smartly. "Captain Mikado, company commander of the 1st Company, 2nd Battalion, 6th Regiment, Capital Defense Corps, reporting to His Highness, the Crown Prince." Raphael, blinking sleepily, asked, "All right, what is it?" Captain Mikado respectfully presented Raphael with a letter. "This is an imperial edict issued by His Majesty the Emperor, Your Highness." Raphael accepted the letter, thinking as he opened it, "I have a bad feeling about this." Raphael stared at the contents of the letter in astonishment. Upon returning to the capital, the Crown Prince was to immediately proceed to the palace and meet with the Emperor. He was taken aback. "Seriously?" Tucking the letter into his pocket, Raphael muttered, "He's not the type to summon me just to see my face. If he's going to make me do something bizarre or unreasonable again," he thought cheerfully to himself, "I'll just use a free lie ticket." Later that night, in a certain palace, Raphael bowed low, kneeling on one knee in the middle of the palace. Crown Prince Raphael Ariana Magano, requesting an audience with His Majesty the Emperor, the rightful ruler of this nation. The Emperor, seated upon his throne, remained silent, his gaze fixed upon Raphael. Raphael knelt, his legs trembling from the strain. "He's pulling this again," he thought. "If you call me here, just get to the point." After a long, drawn-out silence, the Emperor finally spoke. "I have a question for you. Why did you act so irresponsibly and incompetently, causing your subordinates to suffer such hardship?" Raphael instantly understood. "So it's about that." The memory of Urus's thorough beating made him inwardly groan. "Irresponsible and incompetent? I almost died." The Emperor continued, "I heard Minato attacked the mayor's residence." Raphael answered honestly, "Yes, Your Majesty, that is correct." The Emperor pressed, "On that day, why didn't you flee sooner, leaving your subordinates to endure such needless danger?" Raphael looked up at the Emperor, perched high on his throne, astonishment turning to anger that made him tremble. "That is," the Emperor interrupted, "you wish to say you tried your best, correct? But you are mistaken. You should remove yourself from danger before it arrives. If you understood the gravity of your position, you would always be prepared." Raphael bit back a furious retort. "How was I supposed to know? Am I a fortune teller?" Seeing Raphael's silence, the Emperor frowned. "What are you thinking?" Raphael bowed his head. "Nothing, Your Majesty." The Emperor's voice rose in anger, his finger pointing accusingly. "The result of such negligence is that your attendants faced peril and hardship." "He doesn't care about me at all," Raphael thought sullenly. "This is so unfair." The Emperor's voice echoed in the silent hall. "You are the one who will inherit my throne, care for, guide, protect, and be responsible for the millions of citizens of this empire. Yet you allowed a mere 10 of your subordinates to fall into danger and hardship." Reaching a crescendo of rage, the Emperor slammed his fist down on the armrest. "Shameful!" Raphael lowered his head, resentment simmering beneath the surface. "I can't argue with him. He's right." The Emperor's anger subsided, his voice softening slightly. "Reflect on what has transpired, and never repeat such a mistake. Do you understand?" Raphael replied, "Yes, Your Majesty." The Emperor asked, "Do you have anything else to say?" Raphael pressed his lips together. "I have to say something back. This can't be a one-way street forever." With that thought, he spoke quickly. "Yes, Your Majesty. Forgive my impertinence, but have you—" Raphael paused, then continued, "Have you quit smoking as I advised previously, Your Majesty?" The Emperor blinked, taken aback. "What?" Raphael pressed on. "No matter what else Your Majesty gives up, you must quit smoking. Only then can you maintain the health necessary to manage the affairs of state." The Emperor gritted his teeth as Raphael continued his lecture. "As Your Majesty just stated, you are the one caring for, guiding, and protecting the millions of citizens of this empire. Having said his piece, Raphael felt a surge of satisfaction. "Take that, old man." The emperor stroked his beard, flustered. "That." Raphael doubled down on his feigned concern. "Therefore, your majesty must quit smoking. Your health is the peace of the royal family." This isn't just empty flattery. He thought grimly in the original timeline. After my death, the emperor suffered a stroke brought on by excessive smoking and stress. I have to make him quit. It's the only way to prevent the empire from being dragged into the upcoming war, and to avoid following in my father's footsteps after a month of bewilderment. The emperor smiled, leaning back. He folded his arms. "From that day forward, the day you dared to lecture me," his voice grew serious. I quit smoking." Raphael stared, astonished. "Is that so?" He heard the emperor ask in return. "Do you have anything else to say?" Raphael, trembling, rose to his feet. "No, your majesty. I'll take my leave." The emperor walked slowly towards him. "Oh, and 8 Lion advise you not to casually consume the flesh of mythical beasts, even if it contains magic." He coughed a few times, his hands self-consciously covering his mouth as he turned his head to the side. "It's certainly not good for your health." A cold night breeze drifted through the open window. Emperor Aston sat upon his throne. Silence reigned. He smiled faintly. "You worry about me that much?" the emperor suddenly asked someone. "What about the new medicine my son concocted?" The person responded respectfully. "As your majesty instructed, we have mobilized the entire royal intelligence force to spread information about the Manhwa tranquilizer." 8 Lion turned around and asked, "What are the results?" The unseen individual continued their report. "Even the nobles in the farthest reaches of the empire will know of the Manhwa tranquilizer." The emperor's face lit up with pleasure. "Excellent, excellent." The night was quiet and still. The moon illuminated the sky. Footsteps echoed clearly. "Hey, Damien," Raphael said, looking at Damien's puzzled expression. "What are you doing?" "He's here," Raphael added. "He's finally arrived." A man rushed towards them at top speed, tears and snot streaming down his face as he wailed, "Your Highness!" Raphael patted him on the back wearily. There. Then, as if seeing something repulsive, he quickly yelled, "Wait." He swiftly pushed the man's face away with his hand. "Stop." Raphael forced a smile and put his arm around Garen. "Are you that happy to see me?" Garen bellowed indignantly. "You left me with all these impatients." Raphael could only clamp his hands over his ears to avoid having his eardrums rupture by the man's shouts. He quickly soothed, "I'll prescribe you something later. Thank you for looking after the clinic while I was away." Garen sobbed. "It was nothing, Your Highness. I'm Fina." Looking at the physician's haggard face, Raphael said, "Fine, you look exhausted. Have you heard about what happened in Cremo, Garen?" "Yes, Your Highness," Garen replied. "I was very surprised." Raphael slung an arm around Garen's shoulders and glanced back. "Really? But you know what? You'll be even more surprised." Suddenly, Urus appeared out of nowhere, letting out a roar that startled the physician. Raphael reluctantly complimented him. "Your acting skills have improved. You heard the rumors about what I brought back, right?" Garen chuckled. "Have I really improved a bit?" Damien looked on in exasperation at the 2 men walking ahead. "What is going on?" "This clinic is full of strange people." Raphael and Garen continued their lively conversation. "Anything else, Garen?" Raphael asked. "Since yesterday, we've been receiving some strange requests." Raphael curiously asked about the strange requests Garen had mentioned. "They want to buy medicine that we don't even carry," Garen explained, leading Raphael and Damien into a room. Raphael stared in astonishment at the thick stack of papers before him. "All of these letters, are they all requests for the calming medicine?" Garen quickly replied, "Yes, even servants sent from noble families are lining up outside to buy it." Hearing this, Raphael immediately rushed to the window and looked down. "What the?" he murmured, a memory surfacing. "Isn't this the kind of buying frenzy I've heard about? This is incredible, even more so than snail. Well then, there's no reason to refuse them." Raphael's eyes gleamed as he watched the scene below. "Let them in the order they're lined up." Inside that box is a shining jewel, a special edition Crown Prince, 9,870 days later. Inside the royal clinic, Raphael was cheerfully examining patients, giving them careful instructions, when Garen suddenly approached. "Your Highness," he said. Then, leaning in, he whispered, "There's a message from the palace. They request your presence." Raphael was taken aback. "What, the palace again? Why?" Garen shook his head. "I don't know what it's about, Your Highness. I haven't been told. Your Highness, a servant called urgently as Raphael quickly changed his clothes. Prepare the carriage. On the way to the palace, Raphael thought to himself, what does he want to pick a fight about this time? A servant rushed to greet him. Your Highness, quickly this way. Looking at the open door, Raphael asked curiously, this isn't the way to the audience chamber. Stepping inside, Raphael was so stunned he couldn't speak. He stared at the emperor lying in bed, the image mirroring his own father's illness. What's going on? Your Majesty. Why does he look exactly like my father? Memories flooded back. It was a rainy night inside a large internet cafe. Around 9 p.m., a group of people sat in front of brightly lit computer screens, the clicking of keyboards and mice filling the air. He roared in frustration, clutching his head. Get out of the car. He clicked the mouse irritably, controlling his character in the game. You can't even do that right. His hands hovered over the keyboard, his face a mask of displeasure. So slow. Beside him, his phone lit up, indicating an incoming call. The ringtone blared incessantly. After a long while with no answer, the screen went dark, displaying 6 missed calls. A girl at the next computer glanced over. Hey, Han, aren't you going to answer that? It keeps ringing. He replied indifferently. Leave it. The phone continued to ring, but he remained unmoved. The words game over flashed across his computer screen. He frowned, likely annoyed by his loss. The phone rang again. He took his hands off the keyboard and picked it up. Without looking at the caller ID, he answered. Hello. The news he received made him jump up in alarm, slamming his hand on the table. He grabbed his bag and ran out into the pouring rain. When he arrived, his hand trembled as he gripped his bag. Soaked to the bone, he gasped for breath, his face a mask of grief, tears welling in his eyes as he looked towards the hospital bed. His mother was slumped beside it, sobbing uncontrollably. His bag slipped from his grasp and fell to the floor. On the bed lay his uncle, hooked up to a ventilator, unconscious. Back in the present, the emperor lay motionless in his bed, just like his father had all those years ago. Raphael slapped himself, muttering, Snap out of it, you idiot. This isn't the time to be wallowing in the past. Raphael observed the emperor's condition, his chin resting thoughtfully on his hand. A muscle in the emperor's face twitched. Muscle and nerve control disruption, Raphael noted to himself. The prince turned and asked what happened. The captain of the guard stepped forward. I can answer that, Your Highness. He gestured, and a bespectacled physician approached. Paslow, physician to His Majesty, at your service, Your Highness. Raphael turned fully to the physician, his expression serious. How long has His Majesty been like this, Paslow? Paslow stammered. About a night, Your Highness. Raphael's breath hitched. What? All night? A wilting bouquet nearby seemed to underscore the gravity of the situation. What was the cause? Raphael pressed as a dried petal drifted to the floor on a faint breeze. The physician hesitated. Last night, after dinner, His Majesty seemed unusually intoxicated. Raphael crossed his arms. Unusually intoxicated? What do you mean? Recalling the emperor's state the previous evening, the captain of the guard elaborated. After just one glass of wine, his speech became slurred and his gait unsteady. Seeing these signs, I advised him to retire early. But this morning, when I arrived, he glanced at the emperor, then back at Raphael. He was like this. Raphael clenched his trembling hands. Classic stroke symptoms, he thought grimly. He glared at the physician, silently blaming him. A glass of wine shouldn't have led to this. His incompetence. The physician, head bowed, seemed to shrink under the unspoken accusation. Raphael turned away from the physician, his gaze fixed on the emperor, lying in bed. His thoughts raced. It doesn't make sense. He quit smoking. He's been taking care of his health. How could this happen? A chilling thought struck him. This is just like what happened in Demon King's sword. Of course, even if the emperor dies, things won't play out exactly like the story, Raphael thought. It's not like the second prince will become emperor, but that's not something I even want to consider. He pictured the mountains of paperwork that would need his attention. Being emperor is no easy task. He could almost see himself wasting away under the strain. With less than 200 days left to live, I couldn't possibly handle that workload. The realization hit him with full force. If the emperor dies, I die too. He focused, channeling his energy to examine the emperor's condition. The most important thing is to find the cause of the stroke. Closing his eyes, he placed a hand on the emperor's chest. Please, let not be a cerebral hemorrhage. He drew on his medical knowledge. There are two main types of stroke. One is a hemorrhagic stroke, caused by a ruptured blood vessel in the brain. The other is an ischemic stroke, caused by a blocked blood vessel, usually due to a blood clot or atherosclerosis, depriving the brain of blood and oxygen. Which one has the higher mortality rate? He gritted his teeth, sweat beading on his forehead. Generally, hemorrhagic strokes are more dangerous. Please, please, he prayed silently. His eyes snapped open. He seemed to have found the cause. Cerebellar infarction of the anterior inferior cerebellar artery and posterior inferior cerebellar artery, he declared. He could visualize the individual blood cells. So it's an ischemic stroke. Relief washed over him. Thankfully, there's no hemorrhaging. That means paralysis, functional impairment, loss of coordination. His energy continued to flow through the Emperor's body, probing, assessing. Now, we need to find out which blood vessel is blocked. Only then can we assess the chances of recovery and the course of treatment. Lachiel froze. What was this? The insides of the red blood cells were strangely obstructed. Wasn't this an unnatural blood clot? A look of speechless shock and astonishment spread across Lachiel's face. There were no irregularities within the clot itself. The examination results left him dumbfounded. Finishing his examination, he withdrew his hand. By all accounts, both theoretical and practical, this was impossible. Recognizing the clear anomaly, the impossibility of it occurring naturally, Lachiel fell into a pensive silence, suspicion gnawing at him. He turned to look at the captain of the guard and the royal physician, who stood anxiously behind him. Something was definitely wrong. Pushing aside his spiraling thoughts, he brought a hand to his head, sighing softly. Treatment was the priority. He could investigate after the Emperor's life was secured. He couldn't stay here. It wasn't safe. Turning back to the two men, he spoke with urgency. We must take him back to the royal clinic for intensive care. Just as he finished speaking, the door opened. A priest, clutching a crucifix, entered the room. May the Lord bless us all. The captain of the guard spoke with relief. Your Eminence, the Archbishop. The priest, clad in golden vestments and a mitre, radiated a brilliant aura. Placing a hand on his chest, he introduced himself. Archbishop Batona, at your service, your Royal Highness. Lachiel returned the greeting. I am Lachiel Ariana Magano, Crown Prince. Have you come to treat His Majesty? The Archbishop replied, Indeed, Your Highness. He explained his presence. I came here sensing someone in need of my prayers. I never imagined it would be His Majesty. The situation appears dire. Let us begin at once. Lachiel nodded, granting the Archbishop permission to approach the bedside. Very well, he said, a silent prayer forming on his lips. Please, use your divine power, or whatever you can. The Archbishop raised his hands and began a chant. A golden energy emanated from him, a blindingly bright, divine light that forced Lachiel to shield his eyes. The light gently enveloped the Emperor. Suddenly, the system notification sounded, activating acupoint scanning assist feature. With the system's aid, Lachiel witnessed the damaged cells revitalizing under the influence of the Archbishop's energy. Astonished, he reached out to examine the Emperor. The cells, they're regenerating. The Archbishop continued to channel the golden energy, intervening within the Emperor's body. Watching as blue orbs appeared on the Emperor's forehead, absorbing impurities, Lachiel breathed. The cells are regenerating. He covered his mouth in surprise. Normally, once brain cells were damaged, regeneration was nearly impossible. A flicker of hope ignited within him. Archbishop Batona remained focused on his ministrations. Perhaps we can save him. Lachiel clasped his hands together, praying fervently. Please, please. Moments later, the ritual concluded. The golden energy surrounding Batona dissipated. As soon as he finished, he collapsed, his body trembling and his breath coming in ragged gasps. He turned shakily to Lachiel. Your Highness, it is done. Lachiel, his gaze filled with concern, looked at the Archbishop. You have done well, he replied. He reached out to check the Emperor's condition. Lachiel closed his eyes, using his inner observation skill. The blood clot hasn't been removed. It's still blocking the blood vessel. It needs to be completely eliminated. Otherwise, even if the brain tissue is restored, it will die again. Lachiel stared intently at the clot. Lachiel felt as though he merged with the cells, searching for a way to mend the damage. In his mind's eye, he saw the clot obstructing the flow. A steely resolve hardened his gaze. He muttered to himself, his eyes, determined yet tinged with hesitation, acknowledged the risk to the Emperor's life. I have to remove it. That's the top priority. He withdrew his hand, crossing his arms as he pondered a solution. What do I do now? The most frightening thing right now is reperfusion injury. His medical knowledge of reperfusion injury surfaced in his mind. Reperfusion injury, the further damage to cells and tissues when blood flow returns to an area after a period of ischemia or lack of blood flow due to a blocked blood vessel. However, he was also worried. Although reperfusion typically aids recovery when reperfusion injury occurs, this was a difficult problem demanding an absolute solution. The affected area would suffer irreversible damage. At this thought, he ran a hand through his hair in frustration, sighing. Suddenly, as if struck by inspiration, Lachiel snapped his fingers. Turning his head, he called out to Sir Roberto, summoned the royal magician. Roberto, startled and confused, asked, "You wish to summon Lord Gianity, Your Highness?" Lachiel strode towards him, the memory of the Crown Prince's previous actions flashing through Roberto's mind. He flinched, a wave of apprehension washing over him. See, could it be? He began to sweat, fearing what reckless act Lachiel might attempt. "Are you planning to use lightning to treat His Majesty?" Lachiel answered firmly, "No." Roberto immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Immediately after, Lachiel declared boldly, "I will freeze him." Roberto cried out in alarm. "What?" His powerful shout echoed through the palace. The royal magician, Gianity, was summoned. 2 royal guards, armed and alert, escorted him. Clutching his staff, he approached the emperor's chambers. Opening the door and stepping inside, he announced, "Your Majesty, I, Gianity, have answered your summons." Before him lay the emperor in bed, and 3 figures with sinister grins, like hungry wolves who had long awaited their prey. Gianity started slightly. What is the meaning of this?" A moment later, after hearing the Crown Prince's request, Gianity's eyes widened in disbelief. "Your Highness, you wish me to use my magic to freeze His Majesty?" "Truly." Lachiel nodded. "Precisely." The magician trembled, a nervous tremor running through him. He gritted his teeth, looking at the Crown Prince with a mixture of resentment and bewilderment. He thought to himself, "Why are you tormenting me like this?" Gripping his staff, he asked again, "Are you serious, Your Highness?" Lachiel responded calmly, "Freeze him at the safest possible temperature." He then placed a hand on Gianity's shoulder, causing the magician to jump. He smiled brightly, patting Gianity's shoulder, just like when we treated the child with seizures. Gianity turned his head, his voice laced with uncertainty. But Lachiel stepped forward, standing before him, and spoke sincerely. "I need your help. Without you, His Majesty is in grave danger." Hearing this, Gianity's eyes widened. "Is that true, Your Highness?" Lachiel nodded. "Of course. Well, have I ever lied?" The royal magician thought to himself, "Difficult, yes, but not impossible. But if something were to happen to His Majesty?" His thoughts trailed off as he glanced at the Crown Prince beside him. Could it be? An image suddenly flashed through his mind. The Crown Prince, wearing the crown, adorned in royal robes, holding a goblet of wine, and asking with a sinister smile, "Do you suspect me of using you? Of harming His Majesty to satisfy my own lust for power?" Shaking his head, he dismissed the thought. "I'm overthinking this." He couldn't bear to see the Crown Prince, Lachiel, so worried about the Emperor. He considered Lachiel's actions over the past period. None of it resembled the behavior of someone power-hungry. Remembering how Lachiel treated the common people, he mused that His Highness hadn't made any preparations to seize political power. Instead, he'd focused solely on healing patients at the royal clinic. Thinking back, he found Lachiel's actions rather peculiar. Finally, he reached a silent conclusion. Therefore, I can trust His Highness's strange order. Immediately afterward, he spoke, "Yes, Your Highness." Lachiel was pleased. "Good. Thank you for trusting me." He thought to himself, "Now, I can begin the treatment." He turned and called, "Needletail." A creature resembling an adorable hedgehog scurried over at the sound of its name. It hopped onto Lachiel's shoulder. He smiled and asked, "Can I borrow your quills again today?" Needletail gave a thumbs up, signaling its agreement, and immediately shot its quills out to Lachiel. Holding the hedgehog's quills in a large, yellow pill. He thought, everything is ready. He glanced at the figure resting in the corner. Ah, one more thing, and it'll be perfect. The blessing spell. Archbishop Batona was sitting on a chair, still breathing heavily and trembling. Seeing someone approach, he looked up. Raphael spoke politely. I have a question for you, Archbishop. Batona replied, Yes, Your Highness. He asked, the blessing spell you just used, would you be able to use it again in 3 to 4 hours? Archbishop Batona bowed, slightly in apology. I'm afraid that's impossible, Your Highness. This startled the 4 other people in the room. Raphael calmly asked, Why is that? Batona explained, because the blessing spell can only be used once a month. Having received his answer, Raphael covered his face with his hands. Oh dear. He gritted his teeth, thinking, if only I had known, I would have saved it. Regaining his composure, he continued, I have another question. Can I learn the blessing spell? Raphael mused, though difficult to learn, once mastered, it will be incredibly useful. Combining medical knowledge with the blessing spell will make it easier to earn bonus lifespan points. He daydreamed about the system rewarding him with years of lifespan multiplied by 5. Hearing this, the Archbishop clasped his hands together. Ah, you mean like he was revived? He asked excitedly. Do you wish to convert? Seeing his reaction, Raphael's eyes widened, not understanding what he meant. He immediately took Raphael's hand, his eyes gleaming. An excellent question, Your Majesty. In truth, faith isn't something so unattainable. Raphael paled slightly, pointing at himself, as if to confirm that the Archbishop was talking about him. Even for those of noble blood, such as yourself. The Archbishop continued, his words flowing effortlessly. The blessing spell, it may sound esoteric and difficult to access, but in reality, he stretched out his arms and shouted joyfully, It's for everyone. He then clasped his hands over his chest. As long as you have a devout heart and the will to practice. He began to preach. Abstain from women. No physical contact, not even holding hands. Don't speak to them. Look them in the eyes for more than 3 seconds, or stay in the same place with them for more than 3 minutes. Don't even breathe the same air. Listening to what sounded like requirements for conversion, Raphael was stunned. Batona continued, urging them to offer all their love and devotion to the faith. Raphael and his 4 attendants stood frozen, as if turned to stone. Just maintain that for 35, Batona added, and it's done, Your Highness. Still caught up in the evangelical fervor, Batona continued, Your Highness, just 35 before the faith. It's not such a long time, is it? Just do that, and you'll receive the blessing of the blessing spell. He looked at the crown prince with shining eyes, awaiting a response. So easy, right? Raphael sighed, turning to leave the stunned Archbishop behind. He addressed his attendants. Let's begin the treatment. Just outside the Emperor's chamber doors, Raphael helped his father sit up, his mind racing with the complexities of the treatment. To prevent reperfusion injury, it was crucial to minimize the body's metabolic rate. He nodded to Gianity, the royal magician. His thoughts continued to churn. By lowering the body temperature, abrupt cellular changes would be mitigated, minimizing tissue damage from reperfusion injury. The most effective way to achieve this was to lower the Emperor's body temperature within a safe range. Gianity raised his staff, and a blue magic emanated outwards, chilling the air. Raphael recognized this as induced hypothermia. He remained vigilant, observing and analyzing the situation. As the Emperor's temperature decreased, his metabolic rate slowed. The Emperor's body grew cold, almost as if frozen. His heartbeat and breathing slowed. Raphael clenched his hand, ready for the next stage. Hold it there, Raphael instructed Gianity, who focused intently on maintaining the spell. Raphael turned to the cart beside the Emperor's bed. It held needletails, quills, and a bowl containing a shimmering gold liquid, the diluted Minato honey anesthetic he had prepared earlier. Carefully, he administered the medicine to the Emperor. This would aid in dissolving the blood clot. From this point forward, there was no room for even the slightest error. Thanks to the system's vision, he could perceive the clot beginning to dissolve. He focused his mind. I have to act quickly, he thought, or there will be other side effects. Raphael picked up the acupuncture needles. The treatment steps appeared sequentially in his mind. First, stimulate the flow of qi. He inserted a needle into a point on the Emperor's cheek, just below the eye, the starting point of the meridian. Life energy flowed through the Chungchi acupoint, spreading throughout the meridian. The four attendants watched in stunned silence, bewildered by the unorthodox treatment. Unfazed by their reactions, Lachiel concentrated. I have to wait until the entire meridian is ready. He activated the system's acupoint scan. After scanning the emperor's entire body, he confirmed that the energy had dispersed evenly. Now, Lachiel began the acupuncture in earnest, guiding the energy to specific points in sequence: Sibai, Juliao, Jiacha, Dichong, and Dang. I must control the blood flow to the anterior and posterior inferior cerebellar arteries, he analyzed with unwavering focus. If too much blood flows at once, it will cause reperfusion injury, and the compromised blood-brain barrier will surely rupture. This process must be executed with the utmost care. Lachiel held the acupuncture needles with a serious expression, calculating the timing with increasing urgency. He continued to insert the needles into the emperor's head, targeting the Duijui and Xiaoguan acupoints. He felt a mana response, a small ripple spreading outwards. Jianity, the royal magician, was now sweating, a sheen of exhaustion clinging to him. Sir Roberto, his brow furrowed with worry, softly called out, "Your Majesty." The treatment continued, Lachiel and Jianity utterly focused. The other courtiers could do nothing but watch and pray, their anxiety a palpable presence in the room. Lachiel assessed the emperor's condition. The blood flow had decreased by about 20%. There was still hope. His hand tightened around the last acupuncture needle. A silent prayer echoed in his heart. The rest, I can only leave to fate and the emperor's own strength. Whatever happens, please, let it be different this time. A memory surfaced, pulling Lachiel back to a sterile hospital room. He saw himself sitting beside a bed, the heart monitor displaying a weak, erratic rhythm. "Please wake up," he whispered, the words a desperate plea. His hand trembled as he gripped the edge of the blanket. "If you wake up, tears welled in his eyes. "I promise I'll be good. I'll listen to you." Before he could finish, the monitor flatlined. The patient was gone. A hand fell limply to the side. Even though I prayed so hard, grief consumed him. He collapsed beside the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. "But you still couldn't open your eyes." The funeral procession was a blur of tears. A cold hand, the stark contrast of a warm urn. "If only I could hold your warm hand one more time. Just once, even for a moment." Back in the present, a soft whisper reached his ears. "You fell asleep." He blinked, his eyes fluttering open. Warmth bloomed in his hand. He looked over. A jolt of awareness shot through him. "He's awake." The emperor was awake, a gentle smile gracing his lips. "My son, is that you?" He glanced at the basin of water and the cloth beside the bed. "My son, Lachiel, thank you." Lachiel bit his lip, the thought echoing silently in his mind. "But I'm not your son." He spoke aloud, his voice carefully neutral. "It's all right. Don't try to talk. Just rest." The emperor nodded, his eyes closing once more. Lachiel's face hardened as he turned away, the words a silent scream in his heart. "I can't bear this anymore. I'll be outside for a moment," he murmured, slipping quietly from the room. As he walked the palace corridors, the painful memories returned. The rainy day, the self-recrimination. "If only I had received the news sooner." The silent halls echoed with his unspoken what-ifs. Rain began to fall outside. Lachiel paused before a glass window, watching the downpour. "If only I had arrived in time that day." "It's raining today, too," he thought. He clenched his fist, pressing it against the wall, his head bowed against his arm. This time, I wasn't too late. The dam of his tightly controlled emotions finally broke. Tears streamed down his face, mirroring the rain outside. He choked back a sob. "I'm sorry." He let himself cry. He sank to the floor by the window, the rain a steady rhythm against the glass. He shook his head, the words a desperate mantra. "No, I can't. I have to stay calm. Lachiel." He clenched his fists, steeling his resolve. This wasn't the time for grief. Losing his composure now would jeopardize everything. They had only overcome one major hurdle. Countless challenges still lay ahead, with no guarantee against complications. Lachiel closed his eyes, his fingers stroking his chin as he planned the next stages of treatment. He needed to formulate a rehabilitation plan as well, depending on the extent of the after effects. "Just one more month," he mused, "and I can use the blessing spell. Then perhaps full recovery will be possible." Suddenly, a system notification appeared. "You have successfully treated the patient using induced hypothermia. precise acupuncture, Minato honey-based sedatives, and dedicated care. Lachiel stared in surprise at the message displayed on the system interface. The 8-lion Tesserarusa. Magano has overcome the critical stage and is on the path to recovery. An unprecedented miracle has been achieved in history. During the treatment process, you are the first on the Lorazer continent to introduce the concept of reperfusion injury. You have left a significant mark on the medical history of the 6 lands of Loras. The system confirmation continued. The concept of reperfusion injury that you introduced will be recorded in the medical textbooks of future generations. Medical students will weep, suffer headaches, and lament during exam preparations. Who was the first to discover this? Future medical students will curse your name as the scope of their exams expands. The system notifications continued relentlessly. You have received reputation points. Accumulated experience increased. Free light ticket acquired. 121 GDP. Current DP. 222. Usable free light tickets. 2. A satisfied smile touched his lips. 2 tickets? That's an unexpected bonus, he thought to himself. The Emperor's chief bodyguard approached and spoke. Your Highness, you have saved His Majesty's life. And I, the royal physician, Pasro, bowed his head in shame. Through this, I have realized how incompetent a physician I am. I was too complacent and presumptuous. Lachiel responded indifferently. You've realized that, have you? The physician's embarrassment deepened. Yes, Your Highness. Lachiel rose to his feet, his voice cold. Then you should also be aware of your responsibilities. His words startled the physician. Lachiel placed a hand on Pasro's shoulder. When His Majesty was near death, you couldn't even determine the cause, nor could you propose an appropriate treatment or course of action. He turned his back on the man. Am I wrong? The physician stammered that. Lachiel continued walking. So what should you do? You must take responsibility. The physician, panicked and anxious, turned and called out, Your Highness. Lachiel didn't listen, nor did he turn back. He simply raised a hand. No more excuses. Reflect on your actions. From today onward, I will personally attend to His Majesty. Pasro's face paled, and a cold sweat broke out on his skin. Truly incompetent, Lachiel thought to himself, assessing the physician with a clinical eye. After taking a few steps, he turned back to address the chief bodyguard. Ensure that news of His Majesty's health does not leak outside. Now, everyone leave. His Majesty needs absolute rest. Both the bodyguard and the physician responded in unison. Yes, Your Highness. Watching them depart, Lachiel pondered. I can't trust him, he concluded, neither his skills nor his motives. The next morning, warm sunlight streamed through the window panes. Lachiel, having kept vigil by the Emperor's bedside all night, had drifted off to sleep from exhaustion. He was roused by a soft voice. Your Highness. The chief bodyguard had entered and was gently calling him. The Crown Prince, Lachiel, stirred awake, rubbing his eyes and asking what was the matter. The chief bodyguard placed a hand over his heart and bowed low, reporting on the matter Lachiel had entrusted to him the previous day. Lachiel lifted his head. Have you silenced everyone in the palace? Of course, Your Highness, the bodyguard replied. You instructed us to tell everyone outside that His Majesty has a severe cold and is resting. Stretching his limbs, Lachiel inquired. How many people know the truth? The bodyguard answered. Only you, myself, and those who were present at the time. Good, Lachiel praised. You've worked hard, but it seems you have something more to report. The chief bodyguard scratched his head. The emissary from the Ango New Kingdom arrived early this morning, requesting an audience with His Majesty. Upon hearing this, Lachiel shot to his feet, the chair he'd been sitting in toppling backward with a crash. The image of the sinister character from the story flashed through his mind. A flicker of panic touched him as he echoed, the Ango New Kingdom's emissary? And that's it for today's episode of The Crown Prince that sells medicine. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. The next episode is already up on the channel, so don't wait. Go watch it right now and keep following the journey of Lloyd's descendant. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next part. Same time, same place.